While flying his drone over an area rumored to contain an abandoned military base, Ethan stumbled upon a chilling sight. His drone's camera, streaming live footage back to his controller, captured biohazard signs, rusted vehicles, decaying structures, and scattered medical equipment. White tents flapped in the wind, hospital beds lay overturned, and used IV bags were strewn about, evoking an eerie sense of a past catastrophe. The scene was hauntingly reminiscent of a disaster, but the true nature of the events remained unclear. But Ethan's discovery was met with a swift and unnerving response from the Army. "You were not supposed to see this." Ethan couldn't believe his eyes as he stared at his controller, and immediately his heart felt like it was going to explode. He was sure that he had found something special. He had never seen anything like this with his own eyes before, only in movies. And it was obvious that whoever was responsible for this had meant to keep it a secret. He flew his drone around the area to gather as much footage as possible, not knowing that this would bring him into great trouble later. Because when the Army found out what he had done, they immediately came for him. He was forced to delete all the footage and sign a non-disclosure agreement. This was serious business, he realized, but nevertheless, his questions remained unanswered. He wasn't satisfied with this, and he was determined to find out the truth. He wouldn't rest before figuring out what had happened at that base. It haunted him. Little did he know that he wasn't only risking his own life by doing so, but that of many others as well. But what did he really find? Why did the Army want to keep it a secret? And what was so dangerous about his discovery? The sight was absolutely bizarre, and he still couldn't believe what he was looking at. He couldn't see the base from where he was standing, but he knew it wasn't far away. He looked around, making sure he was alone, and he started walking toward his drone. Whatever it was that he had found, it had caught his attention. He made his way through the forest, and suddenly, the path stopped. He could hear the buzzing of his drone just a bit further away, so he knew that he was close. But the forest grew extremely thick here, and there was no way he could just walk through it. Whatever was waiting to be discovered at that base, someone had gone to great lengths to keep it hidden. His initial excitement was slowly making room for worry and fear. What if this was some kind of warning? What if he just turned around, went home, and forgot about this? He was curious, yes, but he didn't want to get into trouble. He thought about it for a moment, but his decision was quickly made when he rewatched his drone footage. He needed to continue. Ethan knew that if he didn't find out the truth about this eerie place, he wouldn't be able to let it go. So, he pushed the leaves and branches to the side and slowly, carefully, made his way through the dense bushes. At some point, his t-shirt got stuck, but he just ripped it free and walked on, determined to find the answers he was looking for. Not much later, he finally saw a huge fence towering over the trees, and he knew he had arrived. This was it. He quickened his step and approached the fence, his heart pounding in his chest. He needed to get inside. He walked around a bit and looked for an entry point, but of course, this was not going to be as easy as he had hoped. He quickly concluded that getting on the other side of that fence would be very difficult. It was definitely too tall to climb, and it was too thick to cut through. Besides, he didn't have any equipment for that, so that wasn't an option. His only hope was that somewhere he'd find a hole big enough to fit through. He wasn't giving up hope yet. Ethan maneuvered his drone back to him and carefully placed it into its case. With his backpack on, he started walking along the fence. He was prepared to circle the entire perimeter of the base if needed, but fortunately, that wasn't necessary. A few minutes later, he found a patch of loose dirt and decided to dig, hoping he could crawl underneath the fence. Ethan paused, his heart pounding in his ears. He crouched low, straining to catch any sign of movement or voices. The forest around him was eerily quiet, save for the rustling leaves and distant drone of insects. Satisfied he was alone, he took a deep breath and continued digging. Each scoop of dirt brought him closer to uncovering the secrets hidden behind the fence, fueling his determination to push forward despite the risks. His hands ached from digging, but finally he had a hole big enough to crawl through. He paused for a moment, glancing around to ensure he was still alone. Then he lay flat on his stomach and shimmied through the gap. The soil was cool against his skin as he inched forward. When he emerged on the other side, he couldn't believe his luck. The base loomed ahead, waiting to reveal its mysteries. With his heart racing, he squeezed through the hole, emerging on the other side. A mix of fear and excitement coursed through him as he stood up and dusted himself off. He glanced around, taking in the desolate scene before him. The silence was almost oppressive, but the thrill of discovery pushed him onward. Ethan knew he had to be cautious, but the urge to explore was too strong to resist. Standing inside the base, he quickly scanned his surroundings. Tall, rusted fences enclosed the area, and dilapidated buildings stood like sentinels. He knew he had to be careful. The place felt abandoned, yet the army's warning still echoed in his mind. Ethan took a deep breath, reminding himself why he was there. He pulled out his camera, ready to document whatever he might uncover within the eerie, forsaken site. He readied his drone and camera, checking the battery and ensuring everything was functioning properly. He couldn't afford any mistakes. The base was a treasure trove of secrets, and he intended to capture as much as possible. Slinging his backpack over one shoulder, he took a deep breath and steeled himself for what lay ahead. With his equipment ready, Ethan began his cautious exploration, determined to uncover the truth. Ethan moved cautiously, his camera capturing every detail. The silence was thick, only punctuated by his footsteps. He filmed the rusted gates, the crumbling buildings, and the overgrown paths. Each shot was a piece of the puzzle he was determined to solve. As he moved deeper into the base, he made sure to document everything meticulously, knowing this footage could be crucial to uncovering the truth about the mysterious site. Initially, all Ethan saw were military machines and vehicles. Rows of rusted tanks and trucks confirmed the base's original purpose. He zoomed in on a row of jeeps, their paint chipped and tires deflated. The sight was both impressive and eerie. He noted the insignias and serial numbers, hoping they might provide clues later. The desolate machinery stood as silent witnesses to whatever had transpired here. As Ethan ventured further, he noticed biohazard signs and scattered medical equipment. Bright yellow warning symbols contrasted sharply with the dull surroundings. He filmed overturned carts and broken vials, his mind racing with questions about the base's activities. What kind of experiments had taken place here? Why was it abandoned so suddenly? The presence of medical gear suggested something more sinister than a mere military outpost. Rusted vehicles and decaying structures gave the site an apocalyptic feel. Ethan's unease grew with each step. The once mighty buildings were now crumbling relics, overtaken by nature. He captured images of shattered windows and collapsed roofs, the decay adding to the mystery. The scene was straight out of a post-apocalyptic movie, making him wonder what disaster had befallen this place, and why the army was so keen on keeping it hidden. Ethan's camera focused on white medical tents, overturned hospital beds, and used IV bags. The scene suggested a sudden, chaotic abandonment. He filmed the tents flapping in the wind, and the medical supplies scattered haphazardly. The air felt heavy with untold stories. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that whatever happened here was both urgent and dangerous. He knew he was getting closer to uncovering a significant secret. But at what cost? Ethan entered a building, cautiously pushing the door open. Inside, the air was stale, and dust motes floated in the sunlight streaming through broken windows. He moved towards a desk covered with documents, which were scattered haphazardly. It was clear that whoever had been here left in a hurry. Papers fluttered slightly in the breeze from the open door, hinting at the urgency and chaos of their departure. Ethan began gathering the papers, his hands shaking slightly with anticipation. He quickly flipped through them, trying to make sense of the jumbled notes and diagrams. The documents were filled with technical jargon and references to projects he didn't understand. He stuffed as many as he could into his backpack, hoping they would provide the answers he sought about the base's true purpose and the events that led to its abandonment. A sudden noise outside startled Ethan, making him freeze in place. His heart pounded as he listened intently, trying to determine the source of the sound. He quickly shoved the remaining documents into his bag, his movements frantic. The sound grew louder, and panic surged through him. He couldn't risk getting caught here. Slinging his backpack over his shoulder, he moved swiftly towards the door, ready to make his escape. Ethan dashed out of the building, his breath coming in quick, shallow gasps. He glanced over his shoulder, his mind racing with the fear of being followed. The base's eerie silence seemed to amplify every noise. He sprinted across the compound, weaving between rusted vehicles and debris. His only thought was to get as far away as possible before whoever, or whatever, made that noise found him. Deciding he needed to head home immediately, Ethan kept running until he reached the hole under the fence. He crawled through quickly, not stopping until he was well into the forest. Only then did he allow himself to slow down. He knew he had to get the documents home and examine them in safety. His mind raced with the possibilities of what he might uncover once he was back in a secure environment. Back home, Ethan sat at his computer, carefully uploading some footage to a secret online forum. He hoped to share his findings discreetly, reaching out to a community of people who might help him understand what he had discovered. His fingers trembled slightly as he typed a brief description, attaching the most compelling clips. Once done, he leaned back, a mix of anxiety and relief washing over him. Within hours, a knock on his door shattered his peace. Ethan opened it to find stern-faced army officers. "You need to delete everything," one of them demanded, his voice leaving no room for argument. Ethan's heart sank. The officers watched as he erased the footage from his computer and the forum. The gravity of the situation hit him hard. He realized just how serious this was. Ethan was forced to erase all his footage and sign a non-disclosure agreement. The officer's eyes bore into him, making it clear this wasn't optional. As he scribbled his signature, Ethan felt a mix of frustration and fear. The Army's tight grip on the situation underscored the danger of his discovery. But as he handed back the pen, he knew this wasn't over for him. Despite the Army's warning, Ethan's curiosity and determination to uncover the truth persisted. He couldn't let it go, not after everything he had seen. The documents in his backpack felt like a heavy secret, urging him to dig deeper. He spent hours reviewing them, piecing together fragments of information. The more he learned, the more he felt compelled to find out what really happened at that base. Days later, Ethan received a message from investigative journalist Sarah, who was intrigued by his discovery. "I want to learn more," she wrote, suggesting a meeting. Ethan felt a surge of hope. Maybe, with her expertise, they could finally uncover the truth. He replied quickly, agreeing to meet. As he hit send, he felt a newfound determination. He wasn't alone in this anymore. Sarah convinced Ethan to meet in person. They arranged to meet at a quiet cafe, away from prying eyes. As they sat down, Sarah leaned in, her eyes filled with determination. "I have the expertise and resources to help you," she said, her voice steady. Ethan felt a weight lift off his shoulders. With Sarah's help, he felt more confident in their ability to uncover the truth about the abandoned base. They pored over the remaining documents Ethan had salvaged. Spread out on Sarah's kitchen table, the papers revealed snippets of the base's activities. "Look at this," Sarah pointed to a technical diagram. "This isn't standard military procedure." They noted every detail, seeking clues about the base's true purpose. The more they uncovered, the more complex the mystery became. But it only fueled their determination to find the answers. Together, they formulated a plan to return to the base under the cover of night. "We need more evidence," Sarah said, sketching a rough map of the area. They discussed entry points, potential hazards, and how to document their findings without attracting attention. Ethan felt a mix of fear and excitement. The stakes were high, but he was ready to face whatever dangers lay ahead with Sarah by his side. Ethan felt reassured by Sarah's support. As they reviewed their plan, he realized he wasn't alone in his quest anymore. Sarah's expertise and calm demeanor gave him confidence. "We'll do this together," she assured him, her eyes unwavering. They went over their strategy one last time, ensuring every detail was covered. Ethan's anxiety faded, replaced by a renewed sense of purpose and determination to uncover the truth. They prepared for the nighttime raid, gathering better gear and reviewing their strategy. "We need to be ready for anything," Sarah said, packing extra batteries, flashlights, and recording equipment. Ethan double-checked his drone, ensuring it was ready for another flight. They dressed in dark clothing to blend into the night. As they finalized their preparations, the reality of their mission set in. It was time to uncover the base's secrets. Under the cover of darkness, Ethan and Sarah sneaked back to the abandoned base with enhanced equipment. The night was their ally, shrouding them in shadows as they moved silently through the forest. Their dark clothing blended seamlessly with the surroundings. Ethan's heart raced with adrenaline, but Sarah's calm presence kept him focused. They reached the fence without incident, ready to bypass it more efficiently than before. They successfully bypassed the fence again, this time more efficiently and with greater confidence. Ethan dug at the patch of loose dirt they'd discovered earlier, the hole just big enough to crawl through. Sarah went first, then Ethan followed, making sure not to leave any trace behind. Once on the other side, they exchanged a quick nod and moved swiftly towards the buildings, their determination unwavering. Heading straight for the buildings most likely to hold secrets, they moved swiftly and quietly. The base loomed eerily in the darkness, its structures casting long shadows. Ethan led the way, his flashlight beam cutting through the gloom. They avoided open areas, sticking to the cover of the dilapidated buildings. Every step brought them closer to uncovering the truth hidden within the abandoned site. Inside one of the labs, they discovered more documents, including a map highlighting restricted areas. Sarah's eyes widened as she scanned the papers. "This is it," she whispered, showing Ethan the map. They spread the documents out on a dusty table, piecing together the base's layout. The map revealed areas they hadn't explored, marked with bold warning signs. They knew these areas held the key to understanding the base's dark secrets. The new information fueled their determination to uncover the base's dark secrets. Ethan folded the map carefully, tucking it into his pocket. "We need to check out these restricted areas," he said, his voice resolute. Sarah nodded in agreement. With their path now clear, they felt a renewed sense of purpose. They steeled themselves for what lay ahead, ready to face whatever dangers the base still harbored. Following the map, Ethan and Sarah ventured into the restricted areas marked with danger signs. The path led them deeper into the base, where the warning signs became more frequent. "We're getting close," Sarah whispered, her flashlight illuminating the faded symbols. They moved cautiously, the weight of the unknown pressing down on them. Every step into the restricted zones brought them closer to uncovering the base's darkest secrets. They found a hidden underground facility filled with decontamination chambers and research labs. A rusted metal door creaked open to reveal a staircase leading down. "This must be it," Ethan said, descending the steps carefully. The air grew cooler and more sterile. At the bottom, they encountered a sprawling complex, eerily well-preserved despite its abandonment. The decontamination chambers hinted at the dangerous work that once took place here. The sight of containment units and chemical remnants confirmed their worst suspicions about the base's activities. Rows of glass chambers lined the walls, many still containing unidentifiable substances. "This is serious," Sarah muttered, filming the evidence. The remnants of chemical experiments and the high-security measures suggested something sinister. They exchanged a look, knowing they had stumbled upon something far more dangerous than they had anticipated. The eerie silence and abandoned equipment heightened their sense of foreboding. Every creak and drip echoed through the facility, making their footsteps seem louder. Dust-covered monitors and abandoned lab equipment added to the chilling atmosphere. "This place gives me the creeps," Ethan admitted, glancing around nervously. Sarah nodded, her expression grim. Despite their unease, they pressed on, driven by the need to uncover the full extent of the base's secrets. They pressed on, knowing they were close to uncovering something significant. The map led them to the deepest part of the facility, where the restricted zones were most heavily guarded. "We're almost there," Sarah encouraged, her voice steady despite the tension. They moved with purpose, aware that every step brought them closer to the truth. Their determination outweighed their fear as they approached the heart of the base's secrets. In the deepest part of the underground facility, Ethan and Sarah discovered a locked room with a heavy steel door. "This must be it," Sarah whispered, examining the thick metal. The door stood ominously at the end of a dimly lit corridor. They exchanged a determined look, knowing this room likely held the key to understanding the base's dark secrets. Ethan pulled out a crowbar, ready to force their way inside. Using a crowbar, they pried it open to reveal a cache of research files and a secure computer terminal. The door creaked and groaned before finally giving way. "We're in," Ethan said, pushing it open. Inside, shelves were lined with dusty files, and a computer terminal blinked softly in the corner. Sarah immediately started sifting through the documents, while Ethan powered up the terminal, both eager to uncover what was hidden here. The documents contained evidence of biological weapon testing and infectious disease experiments gone wrong. "Look at this," Sarah said, holding up a file marked Classified. They skimmed the contents, horrified by the detailed descriptions of dangerous experiments. Charts and photos showed the devastating effects of the tests. Ethan's face paled as he realized the magnitude of their discovery. Horrified, they realized the extent of the base's dangerous activities and the reason for its abandonment. "No wonder they wanted to keep this quiet," Ethan muttered. Sarah nodded, her eyes wide with shock. The experiments had clearly spiraled out of control, leading to catastrophic results. The base's abandonment was starting to make sense. They knew they had stumbled upon something incredibly dangerous, and it was up to them to expose it. Determined to expose the truth, they gathered all the evidence they could carry and prepared to leave. "We need to get this out there," Sarah said, stuffing files into her backpack. Ethan copied data from the terminal onto a flash drive. They worked quickly, aware that their time might be limited. Once they had everything they needed, they glanced at each other, steeled by a shared resolve to reveal the truth. Ethan and Sarah decided to go public with their findings, contacting a trusted media outlet for help. "We can't keep this to ourselves," Ethan said, dialing the number of a journalist he trusted. Sarah nodded, her fingers flying across her phone as she sent an encrypted message. They both knew the risks, but understood that exposing the truth was the only way to ensure accountability for the horrific experiments they uncovered. They arranged a meeting with a high-ranking official who could assist in exposing the truth. "We need someone with influence," Sarah said, scrolling through her contacts. They settled on a retired general known for his integrity and willingness to stand up against corruption. "He'll listen," Ethan said, sending an email with a brief overview of their findings. The meeting was set, and they prepared their evidence for the encounter. As they prepared for the meeting, they became aware that the army was already on their trail. "We've got company," Ethan muttered, glancing out the window at the unmarked cars parked nearby. Sarah quickly packed their documents, her face tense with worry. They knew they had to move fast. "We can't let them stop us now," Sarah said, determination in her voice. They gathered their things and slipped out the back door. Evading capture, they had to rely on quick thinking and Ethan's drone to stay ahead. "I'll use the drone to create a diversion," Ethan said, launching it into the air. The drone buzzed towards the parked cars, its camera capturing everything. As the soldiers' attention shifted to the drone, Ethan and Sarah darted through side streets and alleyways. They knew they had to stay one step ahead to reach their destination safely. Despite the close calls, they reached the media outlet, ready to share their explosive discovery. They rushed inside, breathless but relieved. "We have something you need to see," Ethan said, handing over the files and flash drive. The journalist's eyes widened as he skimmed the documents. "This is huge," he said. Ethan and Sarah knew they were finally on the verge of exposing the truth, but the danger was far from over. As they neared the meeting point, the army closed in, initiating a high-speed chase. Ethan glanced in the rearview mirror, spotting the military vehicles gaining on them. "They're right behind us," he said, gripping the steering wheel tightly. Sarah held on, her eyes wide with fear. The city streets blurred past them as Ethan weaved through traffic, trying to lose their pursuers. The tension in the car was palpable, but they couldn't afford to be caught now. Ethan used his drone to create distractions, buying them precious time to escape. "Keep driving straight," he told Sarah, pulling out the drone controller. He launched the drone out the window, guiding it toward the military vehicles. The drone buzzed and zipped, drawing attention away from their car. The soldiers swerved and slowed, trying to figure out what was happening. Ethan's quick thinking gave them the critical seconds they needed. They handed over the evidence to the media outlet, just as the army caught up. Bursting through the doors, they rushed to the front desk. "We need to see your editor now," Ethan demanded, clutching the files. The receptionist, seeing the urgency in their eyes, quickly led them to a conference room. Just as the soldiers stormed the building, Ethan handed the flash drive to the journalist. "It's all here," he said, breathless. The story was already out, and the media prepared to broadcast the findings immediately. The newsroom buzzed with activity as reporters scrambled to verify the evidence. "We're going live in 5 minutes," the editor announced. Ethan and Sarah watched in awe as their hard-won documents were processed and prepared for the broadcast. The weight of what they had accomplished began to sink in. They had done it. The truth was about to be revealed. Ethan and Sarah watched as their hard-won evidence went public, exposing the base's secrets. The screen flickered to life, and the anchor began to speak, detailing the shocking discoveries. This abandoned military base was used for testing biological weapons, the reporter said. Ethan and Sarah exchanged relieved glances. The public would finally know the truth. They had taken a huge risk, but it was worth it to bring these dark secrets to light. The broadcast revealed the base's true purpose as a testing ground for biological weapons and infectious diseases. The reporter detailed the shocking experiments, showing clips of the documents and footage Ethan and Sarah had provided. This secret facility conducted dangerous and illegal tests, the anchor declared. The revelations sent shockwaves through the viewers, exposing the grim reality behind the abandoned base and the extent of the government's hidden activities. Ethan learned that a deadly pathogen had accidentally contaminated the local area, causing the sudden evacuation. This explains the panic, Sarah said, reading from one of the newly uncovered reports. The pathogen, once intended for controlled experiments, had spread uncontrollably, forcing the hasty abandonment. Ethan's heart sank, realizing the danger they had narrowly escaped. The implications were severe, and it was clear why the government had wanted to keep it a secret. The revelation sparked a public outcry, demanding accountability and transparency from the government. Protests erupted as people took to the streets, waving signs and chanting for justice. "We have a right to know," one protester shouted, captured on live TV. Social media buzzed with outrage and calls for action. The pressure mounted on officials to explain how such a catastrophic failure could occur and to ensure it would never happen again. The authorities were forced to launch a thorough investigation into the incident. High-ranking officials made public statements promising transparency and accountability. "We will get to the bottom of this," one official assured during a press conference. Ethan and Sarah watched, feeling a mix of relief and validation. Their efforts were paying off, and the truth was finally being addressed at the highest levels. The investigation marked a significant step towards justice. The truth brought relief to the affected community and ensured future safeguards against similar dangers. Residents who had lived in fear and uncertainty now had answers. "We finally know what happened," a local resident said on camera, tears of relief in her eyes. New measures were put in place to prevent such incidents from recurring. Ethan and Sarah felt a sense of accomplishment, knowing their actions had helped protect others and bring about positive change.